Hey you guys, welcome back. I know it's been a long time. Welcome back to my channel, Comic Book Noise, as we talk about my comic book company, Digital Noise, as we explain the characters and the storylines of the Digital Noise universe. I'm so happy to be back. I know I took a little time off making videos because I'm busy producing my new titles coming out, and I got a new Wacom, which I'm going to do videos on as well about my experience with first time working with a Wacom. It's going to be so many surprises coming with that. As you know, I do the channel all the time based on comic books and things pertaining to comic books, and this subject is no exception. And what I'm doing now is under Comic Book Noise, I do comic book issues, which talk about things outside of my comic book company. And so comic book issues is talking about things that are currently happening within comics today. So now comics not only just only focus on comics and graphic novels, it also expands in entertainment today. And so under comic book issues, I created another series that I'm a temporary series, or I guess you would say a limited series under Comic Book Noise, under comic book issues. I will call this limited series of videos called Go Broke, Stay Woke. And so the reason why is because there are so many different taglines that I'm seeing that are under the Go Woke, Stay Broke, and many subjects under it. So I wanted to tackle those issues under the Go Woke, Stay Broke tagline that's pertaining to entertainment and comic books. And so under the subject of Go Woke, Stay Broke, is there a gay agenda? So this is what I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to focus how it's dealing with the comic book industry today in a strong and impactful way. And so I'm going to explain the chronologic order of how I saw, from my personal view, things went down within the comic book industry and how that pertains to my comic book production, Digital Noise, as well. So Noixe was created by Chris Claremont and John Byrne, and he was introduced in the pages of the Uncanny X-Men in issue 120. And this was the first time we ever saw Noixe, and he was teamed up with his twin sister, Aurora. So the mutant duo twin team was called Noixe and Aurora on the Alpha Flight team. Throughout, there were innuendos of him being homosexual. It wasn't like obvious that he was gay. It was just like little things that you would see that he will be considered homosexual or lived an alternate lifestyle. So in 1992, Scott Lobdell, who took over the writing of Alpha Flight, which was the spinoff of the X-Men. So he was a prolific writer during that time in the 90s. So in issue 106, Scott Lobdell had Noixe openly come out in the comic book. And this was like a revolutionary time within comics. And this was the first time in Marvel that a gay character was openly gay, like he stated it. The way he came out was kind of, to my personal taste, which is Scott is a good writer, and I know Scott himself. It was, he's a great writer, but this story was kind of, I think the way he came out wasn't, I don't know, authentic. It was authentic, like he authentically wrote him out to be homosexual. But the way the story was written was kind of goofy or hokey in a way, but it was, at least you had LGBTQ representation within the comic book in an openly way in a comic book form, and at Marvel of all places. So that was started there, and so there wasn't any major backlash, and it was kind of known if you're a comic book fan, that, and you, especially if you're a fan of the X-Men, that North Star was gay. So in 2009, Disney bought Marvel. And this was like really when Marvel took a turn to be in the major leagues at this time, because now they have an entertainment production company as big as Warner Brothers, which DC has, to come out with movies and to start being in Hollywood. And so this took a turn to where Marvel started to create films, and this is where the MCU had its birth. So during that time, I think now Marvel in 2009, also at the same time, that's when Marvel started to represent diversity within their comic books. So this is when Marvel started to take a turn where it says now is the second phase of Marvel. When North Star came out as gay in 1992, he just announced that he was gay, but even though he announced his sexuality in 1992, between that and 2009, there was basically no real evidence or strong evidence that he was gay, because the Marvel Comics didn't handle his gay lifestyle in a strong way. So they were still tiptoeing around him being homosexual, because even though he announced himself being homosexual, his life, or he didn't have any lovers during that time or anybody he had romantic interest with during that time. So it was still sort of like a safe space that gay LGBTQ representation wasn't strongly represented in the comic books. And during that time, I worked for Marvel during the 1990s, and I was really young, and during that time, I was a strong advocate for Marvel to show more diversity, to make minorities characters just as strong and just as vital as any major comic book superhero like Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, and any of the majors, as well as I would say for DC as well, because there weren't any true characters. I know they had Black Panther, but to me, he wasn't as powerful as you would say like a Thor or a Hercules or a Hulk, or as strongly as out there as Spider-Man in my eyes. And so I was really advocating for Marvel to show diversity also in sexuality. I used to go around telling editors, like, it could be this and that. And, I was young and I was zealous during that time. And, and when I would tell the editors that, they would chuckle and laugh and thought it was whatever. And during that time, back in that time, it was kind of like an old boys network. During that time, it's not as the Marvel, especially in comics, as you see today. And it was like an old boys network, and it was like the standard white cis man is the hero, and he's the strongest, and he's the powerfulest, and he's the smartest, and that's what was represented during Marvel during that time. And so I was advocating and trumpeting that they should show diversity and kind of make it equal across the board, because I felt that that's what Marvel needed for representation. And during that time, I really got tired of dealing in comics, because that's all I encountered, because I was an artist for Marvel, and I felt like I had more of a passion to do more than just do art. I wanted to tell stories, and the stories how I saw Marvel. So that's when I created Digital Noixe. My first title I created was called Delete. And Delete was a cyber witch, and she was also one of the few African-American women to star in her own regular series and title as a comic. I know they had very few comic books that represented African-American women. Storm had like a little limited series of 4-issue series, and they had another comic book called Knockout, which was an African-American woman, but you couldn't tell visually. She looked like Pamela Anderson with a tan. And so I basically created almost like the African-American female phenotype in the comic book that was considered a regular series in Delete. Also, in my comic book of Delete, that book is supposed to represent true diversity in a way that how I saw the world. And then coming off and spinning off from that book was called The Positive Omen that I created also. And that book is about a superhero team where all the members are HIV or AIDS positive, because I wanted to focus on HIV and AIDS prevention, because people were being infected at an alarming rate with HIV and AIDS. And, now it still happens now in an alarming rate, but now we have certain things to help people keep longer, but people are still getting infected by it, because I wanted to do education about HIV and AIDS and safe sex. And within those pages, I wanted to represent different sexualities, and each character had a different sexuality. Even the character Memory I created, she was considered non-binary before non-binary was a concept. I created her as non-binary now that there's a name to it, because I had her not identify with any sex or gender during that time. There wasn't a tag name to it or for it, and that's what I did basically with her. And I also had representation of strictly gay males. I have DL people. I have people who were lesbian, secretly a transgender, which I won't expose at all in my comic book. And my comic book company came out in 2006. And so that was really what I was focused on. And during that time was really spreading that out, and it got a lot of buzz. And I will be going forward with these books along with other book titles as well in the near future. So just watch out for it. Then we go back to Disney that purchased Marvel in 2009. And so that's when in 2009, Marvel came out with this campaign for them coming out with a new phase of comics and redoing the comic book universe with more diverse characters and different and all bold and new in 2009. So in 2015, in the all-new X-Men issue 40, Iceman came out as gay. So that was a major backlash in Marvel, because Iceman was the foundation of the X-Men way, like I think in the 1960s, where, there was no indication of him being gay throughout the history of his tenure as an X-Men. And all of a sudden you discover in 2015 of that issue, he came out as gay. So that was the second time I saw strong backlash of an LGBTQ plus character represented in a entertainment comic book form. Beauty and the Beast had portrayed the first LGBTQ character that was basically openly gay. And that character was LeFou, and he was the groupie of Gaston. And during that time, when people heard of this before the movie came out, there was a big uproar from the alt-right or the right-wingers or the conservatives or Republicans or just families who are more conservative, was making a big, huge backlash against the film. And they were like stating that this film was grooming their young kids of being homosexual, and why would you have this in a Disney film that's geared to children, and so on. And so the movie came out, and it was a box office smash still against that. And so a lot of people saw it, and it was actually a beautiful and well done film. It was a major success. And so with that was like the first time I saw a big backlash against Disney after this film. So back to Disney. Disney bought Lucasfilms, which has all of everything Star Wars. So in 2020, Star Wars, The Rise of Resistance also produced its film and also produced the first gay representation in that film. And it was a lesbian character and her wife. Her name is Commander Larma DeAcy. And she kissed her pilot wife in that film at the end of the film for like 2 seconds. And so that was a big major uproar, even more so in 2020 during this time. And it showed an LGBTQ character, and all the old Star Wars fans hated it and everything and stuff. They basically, it's not on the subject. They also hated that the major character was a woman, and she had all, it was just another hate campaign against that. Also with the two lesbians being represented in the Star Wars film. And so that was another major backlash and a lot of campaigns against this movie coming out. But it's also it still proceeded to make a box office smash. So the next project that was being produced from Marvel and the MCU was called The Eternals. And The Eternals is a Marvel-based comic book, and it had a character, Phastos. And Phastos is a character that was created as a team member of the Eternals. And he was gay, and he had a husband, and he had a family. There was also backlash against this film, even though it got like bad ratings for other things. This added upon it as a strong complaint about the movie, and why Phastos was gay, and he wasn't gay, represented gay in the comic book when he was originally created. Why are we creating him in this film? And so that was another backlash of an LGBTQ plus character being represented. So now we go back to Marvel again with another gay representation that they produced a film with, and that is Doctor Strange 2, the multi-universe. That came out basically this year in 2022. This film had gay representation, and the character Miss America, that's the character in the film, as also in the comic book, is the representation of LGBTQ, of lesbian. And so this character is depicted as lesbian in the comic book, but in the film, the characters has parents who were two women, and they were, of course, lesbian. And she also wore a gay flag emblem or pendant on her garment and throughout the film. And so that had LGBTQ plus representation within the film. And so there was backlash against that. It was a little effective in a way, but the film still made a box office smash. But I think when the LGBTQ plus representation started to take effect in a negative way on their films, and that was the character and the film that's produced by Disney, and that film is called Buzz Lightyear, Infinity and Beyond. So this film had LGBTQ plus representation in it as well, and the character was best friends of Buzz Lightyear, and this character is named Alicia Hawthorne. So Disney had a strong backlash against this character, and this character, Alicia, had a wife, and what was the big conflict about it, that it was this gay kiss that was rumored to be in the film before the film came out. And there was this huge, gigantic campaign against the film. And it was like they was saying, oh, this is grooming your kids to be gay. This is perverted. How can you show this to little children? This is ridiculous. Why are you teaching this or showing this to our kids? And at the same time, during this time in Florida, Governor DeSantis had put out a Don't Say Gay bill and pushed it out, among other bills that were very controversial, where you don't talk about homosexuality in front of children. I guess it's in schools and things like that. And also that bill also stopped, even if there's a gay teacher or instructor within the schools, if he or she were gay or lived an alternate lifestyle and you had a lover or boyfriend or husband, that you could not put up pictures of your loved ones on your desk or hanging up or anything like that in the school system. And so he definitely didn't want gay to be represented in any way, fashion, or form. So just keep that in mind. So going back to Disney got a lot of backlash around the world, basically, mostly in Middle Eastern countries and also in China, that they did not want that segment of Buzz Lightyear to be shown in their films. So Bob Chapek, the head of Disney, was about to follow their request and do that and take out things for the film so they can be distributed through those countries. But he got so many requests from the employers not to bow down to other countries' needs and just keep it in the film. Because, in the Middle East, they're against homosexuality and everything. And then also in China, they're bringing out a campaign of showing, displaying homosexuality within entertainment there. But America, it's, we're basically more of a free country to where everybody can be and express their sexuality in a way, just as anybody else that's, considered normal or straight. Homosexuals have the same rights. So Bob Chapek got a lot of response from his employees stating that and requesting that he should keep it in, and that's what he did. And so so they were going to distribute anyway without the Middle Eastern countries and also China. And so they bought out the film, and there was this big hate campaign, like major hate campaigns against the film. And it actually hurt the film's box office. I actually saw the film myself. It's a gorgeous, beautiful, heartfelt, well-written film and great story. And I actually missed the gay kiss that was in the film, and I missed it. The person that I went with, I was like, where was this gay kiss that everybody was giving an uproar about that was going to turn their kids gay? And they said it was the part where Alicia saw her kid graduate, and it was a quick, like 2-second kiss when they saw their daughter graduate, and that was it. And I was like, that was it? This is what the big hoopla was, and this is what everybody was thinking was going to change their children to be homosexual? It actually impacted the box office because it was just such a huge, major campaign against it. And, that was that. So now the next thing that came out actually this month, was Thor, Love and Thunder. And so they had LGBTQ representation within the film, and it was more, it was obvious and strong, and the backlash doesn't stop Marvel or Disney from doing what they're doing. So there's 2 LGBTQ plus representation within the film, and that's Valkyrie and Korg. So Valkyrie represents bisexuality or lesbianism, and Korg is just straight up basically loves the same sex, which is, I think he's considered male, but he's a rock formation alien that had a relationship with another alien that's of his rock species as well. And so there was backlash with that, but the box office was pretty good with that. So I guess with a Marvel film, it's not as strong against this because I could think Marvel is considered, I guess, more of an older crowd. Yes, young children can enjoy it, but it also has action and all this other stuff. So people are more apt to see a Marvel film. And but it still had a strong campaign against it, and the movie's still going strong today. So I think this past week was its second week at number one, and I think it made 400 million right now. So it's doing fine. And during this time also, there's another LGBTQ plus representation in Disney Plus, which is Baymax. And Baymax is a series that talks about different characters in each episode with different specific problems. And in one of the episodes focuses on a character called Mabita. And Mabita is a character that's of the LGBTQ community. And the way they told this story, I won't give out any spoilers. It was done in a beautiful and amazing way about his story and about his fears and how to conquer them. And one of them focuses on his sexuality and of him coming out and expressing who he is. So it was a backlash about it, but it still is a major success as a Disney Plus series. And now with Disney going strong and not relenting at all, Disney is coming out with under Pixar called Strange World. And this is where Pixar is coming out with an openly gay character, and his name is Ethan Clade. And it will be the first teenage romance in a Disney or Pixar animation, and it's going to be done amazing. So my opinion about the opposition against the LGBTQ plus community being represented in entertainment in all mediums, I say it's remedial. I think these people are very unaware and very uneducated because homosexuality has always existed since humanity existed. I mean, we have actual evidence and artifacts from old Egyptian times up to now that homosexuality existed. And also within science, studies have shown that 85% of the animal kingdom have practices of homosexuality. They have homosexual animals in different species, from lions to swans to penguins to apes to monkeys to dogs. Mostly every animal species has homosexual animals that practice homosexuality. The dogma of saying that homosexuality isn't natural is kind of a lie, because in nature, homosexuality exists. So you're going to tell me that nature isn't natural? You're going to tell nature itself that it's not natural? You're going to tell an animal they're not naturally doing what they're doing isn't natural, when the animal kingdom is nature itself. And as humans, we're part of nature. And in my opinion, we're animals as well, but we like to think of ourselves higher or whatever. But we're no different with our instincts, with our awareness, with our behaviors. So I just think there's the world around us telling us what exists and what is natural, what there are some different practices that are natural than the basic idea of what humans set as natural. And it's just, with the whole backlash of just having Buzz Lightyear showing LGBTQ representation, like I said before, it was a quick kiss. And there was just a whole hate campaign against this one character, which, in my opinion, I saw Buzz Lightyear Infinity Beyond, and it was such a beautiful and gorgeous movie. That it's a shame that a lot of people missed out on this movie because they heard all the buzzing of almost, it sounded like almost they put out a campaign that it was pornographic. And it really wasn't. It was a heartfelt, endearing story of promise, hope, and showing basically representation of all lives. It was just that one character and those few characters, one or two characters out of the myriads of characters they have in there, represented the LGBTQ community. And they had so many other characters that represented straight, I guess you could say representative of characters. But people wanted to zone in on this one character that made a short, quick kiss. And it was just mind-boggling how that there was a mob mentality of going against this movie. And also just going against Disney itself, where Disney is trying to grow and advance and elevate awareness, because it's just, I'm so happy Disney is on this road of doing that. This huge company is advancing to just represent real people that really exist, that were ignored in society for myriads of years. Not myriads of years, but for maybe a couple of centuries. Because homosexuality, as I said before, existed from Egyptian times to Roman times just throughout. And homosexuality was considered a mental illness before 1975. And then I think the studies have shown, and what experts and professionals have studied, that it's not a mental illness as far as homosexuality is concerned. It's just a human behavior. As much as society tries to deem homosexuality as evil and bad and just perverted, when two consenting adults want to express love to one another, that is okay. That's natural for them. That's natural for their behavior. And if it's consenting, I think everyone should, they should have a right to express those feelings towards each other and have rights just as anyone else. They should be able to get married. They should be able to do anything else that other people consider normal society should do as far as romance is concerned. But it also is just, as far as your kids go, kids are going to learn that there are different people that have different, they're probably learning it now. There are growing number of parents that are of the age of LGBTQ community are sending kids to their schools. There are a lot of kids that identify as LGBTQ within the schools, and they need to be educated that these people exist too, and they should not be hunted down. They should not be picked on, and they just need to acknowledge that other people need to exist. So what I think the Don't Say Gay bill is trying to erase what reality is. What your kids probably already encountered, have already seen, but not been explained to them. It's like when the kid comes home from, go to school and they see Billy, his best friend has two dads. He's probably wondering, why do I have a mommy and daddy? And he has two daddies. So as long as it's not shown in a pornographic way or anything like that, I think education is key to teach our kids that, to teach that there are different people around the world and they should be accepted just as anyone else. You have your rights, they have theirs, as long as they don't hamper on your rights and you don't hamper on theirs. You're not hurting anybody. And this is how America should be, because even look how homosexuality exists within all facets of the world. Yes, China and Middle Eastern countries and even Russia, they basically have, and Africa definitely, they have laws that are against the LGBTQ plus community within their countries, and some even persecute and kill people who are homosexuals. But homosexuality still exists throughout these countries. If it was so unnatural, why are people risking their lives to express who they are and who they love? You know, there's nothing more powerful than passion and just and greatly who you are. And so these people risk their lives. And even if you kill them, there are more following and doing these practices and expressing their love towards one another, or making love, or their attraction to one another, and risking their lives to do it. And so many people compare homosexuality with pedophilia, and that's so off course, because you can tell homosexuality is natural versus pedophilia, because look at the animal kingdom as an example. Again, in the animal kingdom, you don't hear of animals practicing pedophilia with their cubs or with the little ones they birth. You don't hear that. You don't see that in science. But well, that's all. That's it on this segment. Watch me for the next segment under the subject "Go Woke, Stay Broke," and stay safe and take care.